I don't think the next speaker needs any introduction, but for the one or two in here that may not know him, this is Brother Harry Bridges, the founder of the ILWU.
Well, time marches on. Quite a while ago, since I first came to Tacoma to talk to the Tacoma longshoremen, I was much younger then and had a little experience in trade unions, especially with a group that was well known in Tacoma up around here. And in the lumber industry, there was the ILWU or the Wobblies. But then, the whole background of it was, without me, you've got to watch people like me, was in my advanced age. It's a bad habit of older people. If you're not careful, they'll talk all night. I'm not going to let it happen. And there's plenty I can talk about on this 100th anniversary of the Tacoma Longshoremen, but I don't want to tell it, but there's a couple of things I have to mention that have great importance to our union at the time, the development of it, the founding of it, and how it was used by me and by the rank and file of the union to develop that organization. It was one that had an outstanding history, not only in the United States, but in the whole world. And I refer to the beginning of the Union back in the early 20s. In 1919, the longshoremen of San Francisco went on strike. I wasn't here, I was a seaman going to sea. Came there in 1920. Well, the strike was broken, and it became a company union. In 1924, the ILA, which of course was the union at that time of longshoremen, put in a charter and started to organize again. I, as well as 300 or 400 others, joined up. There was a Labor Day parade in '34, and company union agents stood on the sidewalk, took our names, and we suffered a couple of years of blacklisting. On the other hand, a part of the 1919 longshore strike in San Francisco, which was broken, resulted in large numbers of black people coming to San Francisco as strike breakers. And when the organizing program of the 20s started, to organize the black people in the union was difficult. The strike wound up with a company union. We call it the Blue Book. And as I say, the company union supported the strike breakers. It was a difficult problem. One way we solved that problem, I was one of the people who were very active in trying to organize a new union, came to us through the work and the standing of the Tacoma Longshore Local. To make this story short, in 1934, I came to Tacoma with a couple of other San Francisco longshoremen. Our purpose was to call a coastwise convention of all longshore and all locals to plan something for the future. And in February of 1934, I landed here with my two pals in Tacoma and met with the Tacoma longshoremen. At that time, the official secretary of the local was a man named Jack Bjorklund. He was the sheriff of Tacoma. And while he was on that duty, he was supplanted by another man called Paddy Morris. We sat down with Paddy Morris, worked out a convention program for March of '34. The convention was held in San Francisco. It was a rank and file convention, as we call it, and it resulted in adopting a program which eventually led to the '34 strike, which was humdinger and was run. The point of my story now is, when the convention started in '34, February, there was one black delegate. And that black delegate was from the port of Tacoma, and the father of the last speaker here, the judge that just spoke to you, Jack Tanner. When the convention took place in San Francisco, there was one black delegate. I felt bad about it because in the port of San Francisco there's a large number of black people that are being imported to break the 1919 strike. And to convince the white members of the longshore local then that they must be taken to the Union was difficult. So the best example I could have and used to use was the example of Tacoma and having black delegates and black members, and it's time we've done something of the same. So it took a long period of time, but it finally worked out. So one thing the West Coast Longshoremen got to be thankful for in breaking that colour line, that's a part of the history. Anybody wants to know what's going to happen in the future and what the future of the workers of this country is going to be, put your faith in the labour unions, you put your faith in the rank and file. If you don't, there's no other place to put it. That's been my experience after many, many years as a trade unionist, as a trade union official, and I'm going to stay that way as long as I live. I guess I won't be around for another 100th anniversary of this or the other union, but I can at least look back with some pride and look at the union today and see its conditions are good, amongst the best in the country, and the wages and other things still amongst the best in the country. And my advice, I'll take this occasion to mention, no labour union is worth its salt because it takes an active part in the fight for world peace and peace for all peoples, no matter what their country, what their colour, what their nationality is. And I'll leave you with that message and look forward to the future. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Brother Harry Bridges.